This jab now recommended for 60 plus, so it's shifted from 50 to 60. Pfizer preferred under 60s. Pfizer will be made available straight away for 40 to 59-year-olds. Why? Well, 12 blood clots in the past week. Still only 2 total deaths from this vaccine from, I think, 3.6 million doses. And it seems as though that death rate is a lot lower than we were initially fearing, even for the particular groups that are slightly more vulnerable. So that's the official advice. Will it change the vaccine rollout? According to Greg Hunt, still every Australian will be offered a vaccine this year. Make of that somewhat vague timeline what you want. But let's see what my panel thinks. Labor MP Jason Helinski and Labor Party Patrick Gorman have been keeping me company through another long COVID news conference. Look, I'll start with you, Pat.
Anyway, Tom, we've got to go.
You jest, but, something will happen in a minute. What do you make of this? It's a very cautious approach. Does it give more confidence, or do people sort of go, well, it's shifted to 60 now, it might go to 70, maybe nobody wants AstraZeneca now, we know it's a very relatively safe vaccine?
It is a safe vaccine, but as you know, I've always erred on the side of caution when it comes to the health approaches that we take. We should listen to the health advice. But the real problem we've got here in terms of the supply of vaccines isn't that we're saying here's a caution around one particular vaccine for a particular age group. The problem we've got is that we just don't have enough vaccines from other suppliers here in Australia. And that's something that has been clearly a problem for a long period of time. It's clearly a problem the government could have resolved had they have acted differently last year. We gambled everything on AstraZeneca. That was the government's approach.
Was it everything? How is it everything? We've got multiple other vaccines. It's not everything on AstraZeneca.
Well, for a period of time it was. That's a fact. AstraZeneca
By the time we had the vaccine rollout in Australia, we had others available. So there was never a gamble. Just because you have one first doesn't mean you've had everything on that.
And what we've got from the Prime Minister now is, having told us earlier in the year it's not a race, his words, not mine, he's now saying, and he said it on this network earlier today, that we're going to have to sprint at the end of the year. So we've gone from not a race because of these challenges, which were always, the health officials would have given them advice that these are new vaccines, there are going to be challenges. They should have looked ahead. And for the Prime Minister now to have the solution that we've got a sprint at the end of the year, his words, I'm really concerned.
I'm not paying the gamble, but I'm going to pay the sprint. I think that's not a bad point. You usually do sprint in a race.
You do? You do.
If you're any good at it?
Yes.
So it's not a race yet, but...
And as you can see, I'm a born runner, so...
I didn't want to say anything along that.
That's why you keep me around, so I can say it for you.
I look like a runner, but trust me, I'm not. But what's the answer here? I mean, a sprint is a race, isn't it? So it's not a race until we have to somehow meet this December deadline we gave ourselves, so we'll be racing at the end.
Yeah, I guess we will be. I mean, the fact is that you needed to get the logistics in place. It was always going to be a scale up. We faced, I disagree with Patrick, we faced unanticipated challenges from what the Italians did to the advice from ATAGI, which of course Tom stands for.
The Australian Technical Advisory Group on Immunisation.
Oh, that's only because you have it in front of you, don't you? But, and we've had the change of advice from ATAGI, we've had the Italian thing, we've had all that sort of stuff happen. And we're always going to have logistical challenges in getting this vaccine to everyone. So it's always going to scale up.
What do you make? Because you mentioned the Italian thing. The criticism of Europe was that it was too conservative to limit it or pause it. Now we're being very conservative. This will have some impact, I think, on vaccine hesitancy, people not wanting AstraZeneca. I mean, health advice is never one thing. It's a menu. What do you think of today? Is it too cautious?
Well, I mean, I don't have medical training. I'm in no position to argue with ATAGI. You and I share similar views about, well, if this is so dangerous, why aren't we pulling a whole bunch of other things off the shelf? But look, at the end of the day, the goal is to make sure that any Australian who wants to be vaccinated is vaccinated by the end of the year. That's what we'll be sprinting towards.
Can't run, not a doctor. There's a big list of no's so far.
Do you hold a hose?
Yes, I do hold a hose.
Tell you what,
though my garden would say to you, not as long as I should.
Pat started in decent form today.
He has.
Let's
see how we finish it.
Spin this one for me, Pat. JobKeeper, ending that was going to be a disaster. More than 100,000 jobs created in the past month. Unemployment way below pandemic levels at 5.1%.
Yep.
What do you think of that?
Oh, look, every Australian in a job is a good thing. That's where Labor's concerns were grounded. We were worried about people getting past JobKeeper without a job and without a secure income.
So are they
To
unfounded
not-
concerns now?
Well, I think they were appropriate concerns to raise, but obviously, I welcome good news. People having a job is good news, and you would expect the opposition to advocate to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind as we go through what are
That's fine, but Labor's
unprecedented-
warnings haven't come true, have they?
Look, these are, as Jason said, these are unprecedented times. There are things that are going to come up from time to time, and if you want to talk about broken promises or things that people have said that didn't come true, why isn't every Australian back who's stranded overseas? Why weren't they all back by Christmas?
Well, they were.
Is every Australian going to be fully
But they were.
vaccinated?
Well, the same number were. I don't want to go into that.
Is every Australian going to be fully
but that's
vaccinated
unfair.
by the end
Well,
of this year?
yeah, but well, they weren't.
But they
it's
were.
appropriate.
It kept growing.
Yeah,
And then
but they
some of the
weren't.
ones- yeah, but the other
We
thing
said
is-
in November, everyone who's overseas, we will get back by Christmas, and we did.
That also wasn't.
But then there were another 30 or
some
40,000.
was stuck for a year because they couldn't get back because of limitations on flights and who was booking business class and so on.
What?
That's
So
true.
you're trying to say that there were some people who didn't come back to Australia because they couldn't fly
Yes.
business
Yes.
class?
Yes.
Well, and that's on us.
Well,
Well, sorry, that's on all. That's on
who's
the
it's
Parliament.
the system of getting back. The point is there wasn't an orderly queue. If you number 30,000 and then 30,000 people get back, you're not guaranteed to get back. That's the problem.
Well,
Aren't your constituents telling you about this?
yeah, absolutely. Most of it is about people trying to get out to see friends, family, ones that they care
The
about.
ones. Anyway,
And then, yeah, but I mean, we said in November, well, the Prime Minister said in November, everyone who's overseas, who's waiting to get back, will get back. We got that number of people back.
that number, that's the difference.
Yeah.
What? Because there are some people who refuse to come back.
Not
because
refused. There were
they
some
would
people who
only
couldn't
fly
get
business
back.
class.
No, it wasn't only flight. The issue was
Yes.
there were a certain number of quarantine spots. There were a certain number of places on the plane.
Yes.
Airlines were bumping people unable to get on, and they bumped.
Oh,
them
because
more
there were
than
some people
planes.
who
so
were
if you're
willing
in
to pay
cattle,
more.
you're off. That was the
Oh,
problem.
okay, right.
They should have put that in the talking points.
You've
All right.
got to think about talking points.
Neither of
What,
us
you
have got
don't
talking.
want
You're the only one with
Yeah, you're
talking
the only one
points.
talking.
Yeah, but I wrote mine.
What, you don't want people to be informed when they come to your
Informed's
program?
good.
Okay, informed's good.
Informed is
but
good.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
it's
Well, I feel
seeing-
like I know more now than I did when I came in.
Well, you better.
Like
tell.
a Targi and
Yeah.
also
Well, we did look at that up in the ad break.
the...
I feel as though we're moving towards fast, so let's throw one more in there.
Okay, go.
Are you going to go your hardest over the Prime Minister over these QAnon links?
I wouldn't use that terminology. I think what's important is that the Prime Minister answers the questions that have been put to him over a period of time. I think that's a reasonable expectation.
What specifically?
The nature of, the nature of his engagement with this individual, particularly around the speech that he gave. I mean, that's a pretty serious.
You want him to come out
allegation.
and say, "Here's how I know him." No,
and I think also-
you didn't put the word ritual in my speech, and you're
just
happy.
look, the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has a. Let me finish, Jason.
No, but wasn't ritual in the report?
Ritual was in not the
there was-
main
no,
report, but
yeah.
the support notes or whatever you call it.
So it was pulled from the support notes.
Well,
The word was in there within the whole context of the Royal Commission.
So that's my question: is why? Well, sorry. Okay.
Well, I think the question is, Four Corners is a serious program. It's
Well, it
serious
was.
concerns about the Prime
Really?
Minister's relationship with this gentleman. I think it's reasonable that if there's nothing to say here, I think it's reasonable the Prime Minister comes out and answers those
But
questions.
this is like
he's
saying,
the Prime Minister
prove
of the country.
to me that
He
William
is the
Shakespeare
Prime
didn't
Minister-
write Romeo and Juliet. I mean, this is what Four Corners is doing these days. We are going to throw out
Jason, if William
absolute-
Shakespeare was the Prime Minister of Australia today, I'd have a lot of questions, including his citizenship.
All right.
So,
On that serious note, Patrick, Jason, good to talk.